sandwiches, ice cream, coffee and snacks, and many other pleasing treats. Our foods are fresh and tasty, our drinks satisfying and refreshing. They're so good.
Welcome to Average Joe's Drive-In.
And now, on with the show.
Welcome to Average Joe's Drive-In, episode 58. I am your host, TJ Washburn. This is a Reviewcast. I've got a few movies to talk about, some newer ones, and some classics, and we're going to open up the VHS vault today and talk about some classic VHS films. I'm also probably going to talk a little bit about a couple shows that I've been watching. So, why don't we get to it? Up first is 2017's Guardians.
Game is on, cards are dealt, my darling dream.
I have 2 weeks to search all of the former Soviet Union for the superhumans that can stop a supervillain.
Exactly right. These people are our only hope.
What's the name of the mission?
Guardians.
War is everywhere and cold inside.
We're all the same. Lair. Kaz. Arsis. You want to know who did this to you? Come with us.
Rapid military attacks on Moscow continue.
Army turned out to be useless against the opposition forces. All attempts to stop it ended up with a complete shutdown of any machinery.
I've been waiting for this for half a century. There's no coming back. For all of us.
Our experimental laboratory designed special gear to increase your performance.
Where's mine?
Game is on, cards are dealt, my darling dream.
The film was directed by Sarek Andrezian, has a runtime of 88 minutes, unrated, starring Anthony Papushnev, Sanjar Mahdi, and Sebastian Sisek. I watched this on DVD. During the Cold War, an organization called Patriot created a superhero squad, which includes members of multiple Soviet republics. For years, the heroes were forced to hide their identities, but in hard times, they must once again show themselves. I remember first seeing the trailer for this a couple of years ago. I thought it looked like it could be a lot of fun. Then, I didn't hear much about it. I just assumed it wasn't going to get any sort of US release. I'd almost forgotten about it completely when I saw Shout Factory was putting it out. So, I was excited, but hadn't gotten around to snagging it yet. I happened to be browsing Redbox the other day and found a copy to buy for a little more than the actual rental cost. For the price, I figured, what the hell, I might as well snag it. First of all, I really enjoyed this film. I started watching it with the voices dubbed in English, but ended up turning it over to the original language and putting subtitles on. I wanted to watch it through at least once that way to hear what the actors sounded like in their native tongue. I'm glad I did. It felt like it flowed better that way. As it is with a lot of films I've watched that are dubbed in English, the voices always seem a little off. Even with the subtitles, there are some things I thought were a bit lost in the translation, but it didn't really affect my enjoyment at all. The film looked great. There are some cool fight sequences. The effects are solid, and the score fits the tone of the movie well. Another bonus, the film's very short, so it gets right to the point, doesn't take forever to get going, and we just dive into the action. I'll take that. While it might not break any new ground, it was a fun experience. If you like superhero movies, it's one you should give a chance. It's not without its flaws, but none of those things really hurt the movie too severely for me. I could see where some people might have an issue with not getting more of a backstory on the characters. It also feels like because of the short runtime, some things seem to happen too quickly as it jumps from plot point to plot point. Again, for what this was, I did enjoy it. When you look at what this film was made for, which was roughly the equivalent of $5 million US, it's pretty damn impressive. I hope they make some more of these. I know I'll watch them if they get a US release. My rating was a 6 out of 10. The average IMDb rating is a 4 out of 10. Up next, 1982's The Secret of NIMH.
Aurora and Don Bluth Productions present a classic adventure in motion picture entertainment. I must tell you about NIMH. Look there. It's a fantasy with wizards and villains. And heroes.
I ain't scared of nothing. I'm not even afraid of the Great Owl. Will you hush up? Come on.
It's an odyssey to another world. A world of fantasy and enchantment.
To what you see and hear, you must swear absolute secrecy.
It's the most beautiful sight I've ever seen.
Do you like me?
Of course I like you.
It's a story of friendship.
I mean, you don't think I'm clumsy or anything. What? I just need a few pointers to polish my style. I told you you'd love flying.
I don't know how I let you talk me into this.
It's a classic story of courage.
Why have you come?
And a world of danger.
If I had actually been near a cat, I'd be sneezing my brains out. I'm allergic to hay. Excuse me, pardon me.
Get out! Run for your lives! Run!
Where courage is rewarded.
Oh, thank you.
A motion picture for everyone to share.
Oh, the poor turkey fell down.
I'm not a turkey.
Big
no,
buzzard,
stop.
where's our mother? Get down with her. You better tell her.
Discover the secret of NIMH and rediscover the child in us all.
The film was directed by Don Bluth, has an 82-minute runtime, it's rated G, stars Elizabeth Hartman, Derek Jacobi, and Dom DeLuise. I watched this on DVD. Synopsis. Miss Brisby, a widowed mouse, must move her children out of their home in a field before the local farmer starts plowing. Unable to leave because her son is ill, Miss Brisby seeks the help of nearby rats, who have a heightened intelligence after being subjects of scientific experiments. She receives an unexpected gift from the elder rat Nicodemus. Soon, Mrs. Brisby is caught in a conflict among the rats, jeopardizing her mission to save her family. This was another trip down nostalgia lane on a film I hadn't seen in probably 10 years. This is one I've wanted to revisit for the last year or so, but I couldn't find it on any of the streaming services. So I got looking around and managed to snag a copy for cheap on DVD. This was a film I grew up watching countless times on HBO as a kid, and it had always been one of my favorite animated films from that era. I love the animation in this. It has a simple yet beautiful, almost oil-based color tone to it. I feel like you can only get that with hand-drawn animation. While the newer computer animation films have their own charm and are usually more vibrant color-wise, there's just something about the older films that I love. I still adore this one. It's a great story full of heart that's essentially about what lengths someone will go to protect those they love. While it does have some dark undertones, they're very discerning in the way they play out. The voice acting is fantastic, and there are plenty of adorable moments with the Brisby children, and even the Raven Jeremy, to offset any of those darker moments. It's a great little animated fantasy that still holds up 36 years after it was released. If you haven't watched this one in a long time and have fond memories like I do, or if you've never seen this one and love animated films, please check it out. It's very much worth a watch. It has a short runtime, clocking in at only 82 minutes, so it doesn't take a lot of time to view, which is also a huge plus if you want something good but not long. My rating for this was a 7.5 out of 10. The average IMDb rating is a 7.6 out of 10. Up next, a film that I have been trying to track down forever, 1980's Super Fuzz, also known as Super Snooper.
Meet America's newest superhero, David Speed, Super Fuzz. He's a whiz in the pool hall, a marvel in the parking lot, and one of the best bullet catchers in the business. Meet Super Fuzz, the craziest cop this side of Inspector Clouseau. Super Fuzz, a blockbusting, high-flying, water-walking, smooth-talking, fleet-footed, skydiving, hard-driving, crime-fighting, all-American hero. Super Fuzz. Just for the fun of it.
The film was directed by Sergio Corbucci, has a 97-minute runtime, rated PG, stars Terrence Hill, Ernest Borgnine, and Joanne Drew. I watched this on Amazon Prime. Synopsis. Bomb site radiation gives a Miami police rookie off and on powers that he uses to fight crime. I've wanted to watch this one again for a long time, but I could never find it anywhere. It turns out it was known as Super Snooper, something other than Hot Super Fuzz, which is what I knew it as. Lo and behold, it just happened to be on Amazon Prime. This was an HBO staple of my childhood. The last time I watched this, I was perhaps 11 or 12. I remember bits and pieces, but not a ton of detail, other than those fragments. Let me tell you, this is so bad, yet amazing and fun. It's one of those films that, even though it's far from great, it manages to be highly entertaining. I laughed out loud at several parts, which is pretty rare for me. There are logistical plot holes you could drive a truck through, horrible dialogue, low-budget effects that range from good to bad, and a roaring soundtrack that pretty much consists of the same song over and over. The acting ranges from okay to flat-out bad, but honestly, it fits the film, and adds to the enjoyment of the overall experience. That makes it easy to forgive in the grand scheme of things. I'm so glad I finally got to see this again. It was a welcome ride down memory lane, and getting to see this childhood staple again put a huge smile on my face. Even if 11-year-old me thought this was awesome and enjoyed this for other reasons, what more could you really ask for? My rating is a 5.5 out of 10. The average IMDb rating is a 6.4 out of 10. Up next, this one is still in the theater, and if you haven't seen this, you need to go check it out. And that is 2018's A Quiet Place.
Military fighting a massive invasion. Around the world. Total devastation.
We have to protect them. Promise me.
I promise.
Rated PG-13. Be the first to see it Thursday night.
The film was directed by John Krasinski, has a 90-minute runtime, rated PG-13, stars Emily Blunt, John Krasinski, Millicent Simmons. I saw this in the theater. Synopsis. A family is forced to live in silence while hiding from creatures that hunt by sound. If they hear you, they hunt you. The trailer for this had me interested from the get-go because I thought it looked like an interesting premise. I'm a sucker for monster movies, and it's been a while since we've gotten a truly great one. My hopes were high, but like anything I get super excited about, I went in with an air of caution. Too many times I've gotten pumped up for a film like this and not had it deliver. Boy, did this one deliver. Frankly, this may be one of the creepiest, jumpy horror films I have seen in ages. Not only does it give us the scares in spades, it manages to be unique while mixing in some old tropes that us horror fans love so much. The film exceeded my expectations and then some. The way everything is set up, the fact you care about the family and their plight without a ton of dialogue is a testament to how well this film is written and the actors' performances. It takes us from just being another monster movie and puts it in a category few films of this nature ever reach. While many monster movies manage to be fun and maybe a bit scary, this one doesn't let off the intensity throttle the entire film. Well, that's not what I want out of a film all the time. It works perfectly for this. That intensity is what makes the film so captivating and enjoyable. As most anyone knows who goes to the movies these days, it seems about 7 out of 10 times you go, and there's always someone that can't shut up, turn their phone off, or that does something else exceedingly annoying to ruin the experience for the rest of the crowd. I've never understood why theater staff don't patrol the films and remove people who do this stuff. It would make for a better theater-going experience for the other 99% of the patrons who are being respectful and just trying to enjoy the movie. The film managed to do something I haven't seen in a long time. It shut up the entire crowd. Other than the occasional straw moving in a drink or a candy wrapper crinkling, it was almost dead silent. If that doesn't convey the power of the film, I don't know what does. That also only makes the film even better for the simple fact the film itself is so quiet. It makes the intense moments work even better. This was hands down one of the best theater-going experiences I've had in a long time, and one I wish would happen more often. I'm curious to see how this is going to hold up on repeat viewings, but for now, I think it's about as perfect as you can get for this type of film. If you're a horror fan, I highly recommend going and supporting this film in the theater. The hype is real about this. It's a truly special film-going experience you don't want to miss. My rating is a 10 out of 10. The IMDb rating is an 8.3 out of 10. So now, it's that time of the show. Welcome to the VHS Vault. This is a portion of the show where I blow out the dust from classic and forgotten films from the VHS days. Films you may have forgotten about, never heard of, or just haven't seen in a while. Up first, 1990's Arachnophobia.
The Jennings family has just moved to the small town of Canaima.
Oh, Ross, smell that air. Oh, God.
In search of a simpler life.
Want to blow up a bullfrog? Okay.
It's the perfect place.
Goodbye crime, goodbye grime.
Except for one pesky little problem.
Come with me and look at the web.
The web?
I have a terrible fear of spiders. Come on, we live in the country now. It's time to work through this irrational, paralyzing terror.
It's not irrational.
Hollywood Pictures and Amblin Entertainment present Jeff Daniels.
Honey, we're in the living room. We need
need you to kill a spider.
And John Goodman.
Bill McClintock, Infestation Management.
My guy's just a spider.
Would anybody object if I tore this floor out?
I would.
False alarm, then lead on. There's no spider here.
Every so often in a little town somewhere, there is a health scare.
There's a rumor going around that some kind of spider might have killed Sam Metcalf.
Doubtful.
Spiders make convenient culprits.
There's no spider here.
I think one of your Venezuelan spiders hitched a ride here. There may be some spiders around here that are very dangerous.
God, chill out.
Just run.
They spread out from a central nest in a web-like pattern and dominate the entire area. When that happens, this town is dead.
Better uncork my private stock.
Rock and roll!
Hollywood Pictures and Amblin Entertainment present Arachnophobia. 8 legs, 2 fangs, and an attitude.
Perk up, Lloyd. If we find the spider that did this, you can arrest him.
Arachnophobia, a thrill-omedy.
The film was directed by Frank Marshall, has a 103-minute runtime, it's rated PG-13, stars Jeff Daniels, Julian Sands, and John Goodman. Of course, I watched this on VHS. Synopsis. After a nature photographer dies on assignment in Venezuela, a poisonous spider hitches a ride in his coffin to his hometown in rural California, where arachnophobe Dr. Ross Jennings has just moved in with his wife, Molly, and young son. As town residents start turning up dead, Jennings begins to suspect spiders and must face his fears as he and no-nonsense exterminator Delbert McClintock fight to stop a deadly infestation. I watched this one a few times many years ago when it first came out on VHS, but I don't think I've seen it since. I remember next to nothing about it other than the basic plot. I came across it on VHS for 30 cents, so I figured why the hell not? Time to give it another viewing. This is a pretty enjoyable film for the most part. The acting's solid, the story works, and it looks good. One thing that stood out to me about it was the fact nothing really stands out about it. While it has a few comical moments, it's not scary at all. It might be if you're terrified of spiders, but that's a different story. I'm not sure that was the intention in the first place anyway. Regardless, while this film is good, there weren't any moments where I went, wow, or found myself going, that was a really cool scene. I think that's why I had a hard time remembering anything about it. It's just one of those films is what it is, and I don't think it tried to be anything more than that. While in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't hurt the enjoyment level of the film, it also doesn't help make it stand out. This was certainly one I'll watch again, and I'm glad I picked it up, but it's a film I'm perfectly fine having on VHS and not a higher quality format. My rating, 6 out of 10. The average IMDb rating, 6.4 out of 10. Up next, 1991's Eve of Destruction.
Jim, you're about to be brought in on this country's best-kept secret.
They thought of everything.
She's designed to be deployed in hostile countries.
But the unthinkable.
When we eventually do find her, how do we switch her off?
It's not as simple as that, Colonel.
They planned everything. But the unimaginable.
This one's not going to go away quietly, sir.
A bullet through either eye should terminate all motor activity.
They controlled everything.
Stay down!
But the inconceivable.
We've got to be right about New York. Otherwise, a lot of innocent people are going to die.
Get out of the way!
Only one man can stop. The Eve of Destruction. Gregory Hines. Eve of Destruction.
The film was directed by Duncan Gibbons, has a 110-minute runtime, rated R, stars Gregory Hines, Renee Sotenjik, and Michael Green. Synopsis. An anti-terrorist hunts a walking bomb made by a scientist in her own image, with all of her hang-ups. This was one I saw once or twice on cable back in the day. I didn't remember a whole lot about it other than it was about an AI robot on the loose and it had Gregory Hines in it. For some reason, I feel like in the early 80s, early 90s, they were trying to turn him into an action star. I might be wrong, but it feels like that there were a bunch of low-budget, straight-to-video type flicks with him in those types of roles. Though I couldn't name any off the top of my head other than Eve of Destruction. This one felt like it was straight out of the late 80s or early 90s. It very much had that cinematic style, the music, and awkwardly weird dialogue to it that seemed to happen so often in that era of film. There's a straight-to-video vibe going on, like, okay, maybe this had a theatrical run, but it was a limited release and kind of a budget from that time period. Overall, it's a pretty solid film. The effects are decent, it's shot well enough, and I didn't have any big issues with the acting, which was serviceable, even if it did come across as a bit wooden from time to time. The story is interesting, but straightforward. My only major gripes were it felt too long. They could have cut about 10 to 15 minutes off the start of the film and it wouldn't have affected what happened later on. They weren't necessary, it wasn't necessary to explain the backstory later on in the film. Personally, I think it would have made it a bit more interesting that way. The only other thing was the pacing. The film moves along at a very leisurely pace. Most of that could have been resolved by trimming the runtime down. So, they could have just tied those aspects together and it would have, as far as them explaining stuff later on in the film and then going in the front part of the film. They could have tied that together into one section and that would have cut that 10, 15, 20 minutes off the beginning. This is a good one to have in the collection as a VHS. I'm not so sure I'll watch it again anytime soon, but it's there if I decide I want to. My rating is a 5.5 out of 10. The average IMDb rating is a 4.8 out of 10. Up next, 1994's The Lion King.
Connected in the great circle of life.
Walt Disney Pictures presents its all-new 30-second full-length animated motion picture, The Lion King. He was born to rule.
This'll all be mine?
Everything the light touches.
Wow.
But a shadow lies over the kingdom.
I will be king. Run away and never return.
If you ever come back, we'll kill ya!
Hey, kid, what's eating you?
I don't want to talk about it.
He looks blue. I'd say brownish gold. No. I mean, he's depressed. Anything we can do?
Not unless you can change the past.
He grew up hoping to leave his old life behind.
I know who you are. You're Mufasa's boy.
You're the king.
King? Have you got your lions crossed?
You know my father?
Correction. I know your father.
He died a long time ago.
Nope. Wrong again. He's alive. And I'll show him to you.
Father?
You are my son, and the one true king.
You see, he lives in you.
You must take your place in the circle of life.
Simba!
It's a legendary tale filled with excitement, plus dozens of wonderful new characters.
Why do I always have to save you?
And featuring original music and songs by Grammy winner Elton John and Academy Award winner Tim Rice. This summer, Walt Disney Pictures presents an entertainment event you'll never forget.
This film was directed by Roger Allers and Rob Minkoff, has a runtime of 88 minutes, rated G, stars Matthew Broderick, Jeremy Irons, and James Earl Jones. A lion cub crown prince is tricked by a treacherous uncle into thinking he caused his father's death, and flees into exile in despair, only to learn in adulthood his identity and his responsibilities. I haven't seen this one in a long time. I think the last time I saw it was in high school, maybe once after, but I can't really remember. This one still holds up. It's a very enjoyable film with everything you'd expect out of a Disney animated film. There's great songs, funny parts, a good story, and genuinely touching moments that hit you right in the gut. The voice acting's very well done, and I noticed many of the animals had qualities of their human voice actors, feature-wise. At least I thought so. I'd never noticed that before. One thing I didn't remember so much about this was it does have some very dark moments scattered throughout, which I never really paid that much attention to or noticed before. They're not super scary, but I can see where a younger child might get frightened a bit. It also may not affect them at all. I think many of those moments seen through adult eyes are what register them as disturbing. I'm glad I have this one in the collection. When I need that Disney classic animated itch scratched, I will certainly throw this one on again. My rating is an 8 out of 10. The average IMDb rating is an 8.5 out of 10. In the last film in the vault for this week is 1988's Willow.
It was a different time. It was a time of destiny. A time when a child could tip the balance between good and evil.
Why, with my powers, with the strength of my great army, can you not find one little child?
A time for an unlikely hero named Willow.
So I'm not gonna let anything happen to the baby.
We gotta give that baby to somebody.
I'm somebody.
A time of scoundrels.
What goes on here?
Uh-oh.
And a time of rebels.
You are great.
After them!
You're gonna get us killed. You're a great warrior and a swordsman. And you're 10 times bigger than I am, stupid!
Find the child! Find the child!
It was a time when courage could be found where you'd least expect it. A time when unearthly powers raged and good men risked their lives. A time of great adventure. From the creator of Star Wars and the director of Cocoon, Willow.
The film was directed by Ron Howard, has a 126-minute runtime, rated PG, stars Val Kilmer, Joanne Whaley, and Warwick Davis. Synopsis. Enter the world of Willow and journey to the far corners of your imagination, to a land of myth and magic where dream and reality live side by side, to a place that never existed, a time that never was. It is a world where a young man named Willow lives out an adventure that explodes beyond the boundaries of his own hopes and fears. This one is an old favorite of mine that I haven't seen in years. For one reason or the other, it's out of print and I've had a difficult time tracking down a copy that wasn't super expensive. My good friend Eric Marner of the Movie Freaks podcast came across the VHS copy and snagged it for me as he knew I'd been looking for it. I waited with anxious anticipation for it to arrive, and when it did, I threw it in. This one still holds up. It's just as fun as I remember it being. Val Kilmer and Warwick Davis are great. They play off one another well and have a great chemistry in their scenes. It comes across as genuine and not forced. This is essentially a buddy flick, so that's a very key element that the two leads work off each other well. The rest of the cast fills in the gaps nicely and adds to the story with their performances. You feel like you're in the world the film's taking place in. The effects, for the most part, still hold up. There were a few things here or there that looked a bit dated, but not to the point where it took me out of the film. I'm curious what someone who's never seen this would think about those. The score is great, the scenes are beautifully shot, and when you couple everything together, it makes for a damn good film. While it's far from perfect, it's still a fun film I enjoy the hell out of. I'm glad I have a copy again to throw on when I feel like viewing it. That's been something I haven't been able to do for a very long time, and I'm glad that's no longer the case. Now this one just needs to get a proper Blu-ray release because it deserves it. My rating is an 8 out of 10. The average IMDb rating is a 7.3 out of 10. That wraps up this edition of the VHS Vault. Hopefully it took you on a trip down memory lane or gave you insight on a film you've never seen before. For now, it's time to close and secure the vault. So, before we end the show this week, I wanted to talk about a couple of TV shows that I've been watching. I'm not through them yet, so I'm not really giving a review. It's more of just my thoughts so far. The first one that I've been checking out, and I've been meaning to check out for a few years now because a few of my buddies have been like, dude, you would really enjoy it, is Gotham. And I'm about 6 or 7 episodes into season 1, and I gotta say, I'm really enjoying it so far. It's not what I expected. It feels more like a superhero cop drama to me, the way the first season's going. And everybody's told me, you got to take the first season with a kind of a grain of salt and just bear with it because it's a little bit slow. But as it gets going further on, it kind of picks up and gets a lot better. But I enjoy it for what it is. It's definitely not a show that I would binge. It's kind of one of those ones I'm going to throw on. I throw on an episode maybe once or twice a week and watch it, and eventually, I'll get caught up. Might take me a while. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with that coming forward. And second show that I just started watching that just come out on Netflix that I have been super excited to check out is the Lost in Space reboot. I watched the first couple episodes last night, and I gotta say, I'm really impressed with it so far. Hopefully it keeps that momentum and kind of keeps up because it's a beautiful looking show, and I enjoyed it. It's a bit slow so far, but I always expect the first few episodes of a show kind of be a little slower just because, they're setting everything up, and so I'm enjoying that. So, sometime in the near future, look for my reviews of Season 1 of Gotham and Season 1 of Lost in Space. So that's pretty much going to wrap the show up for this week. Once again, I would like to thank my sponsors, the Maine Cannababes. You can go to www.maincannababes.com and find out all kinds of cool information about them. Lots of resources. You can meet the new girls that will be on this year's calendar coming up. I'm not sure if they're doing pre-orders for that calendar yet or not, but there's all kinds of information on that, like I said, and resources and just very cool things, and great group of ladies. Again, maincannababes.com. I'd like to thank everybody for listening to the show, and I appreciate you all tuning in. And I want to leave you on this note. Remember, kids, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. And I will see you sexy animals on the flip side. Thanks for listening to Average Joe's Drive-In. If you'd like to talk movies or contact the show, add our social media pages. You can add us on Facebook at Average Joe's Drive-In Podcast, on Twitter at TWJ Author, on Instagram at Thomas Washburn Jr. You can also hit up www.thomaswashburnjr.com for more information about the show and related links. If you'd like to support the show, you can buy TJ's books on Amazon. Just type in Thomas Washburn Jr. in the search. Books are available in Kindle and paperback formats. If you have Kindle Unlimited or Prime, you can read the books for free and money will be earned by the pages read. It doesn't cost you anything and it supports the show. Until next time, you've been listening to Average Joe's Drive-In.
It's intermission. Rise and stretch time. Time to refresh yourself and visit our snack bar. Got a yen for hot popcorn? Your favorite soft drinks are sparkling cold. The juicy Frank sizzling hot. There's delicious coffee, freshly brewed, and all kinds of ice cream and candy to tempt you. Showtime will be announced loud and clear to get you back to your car in time. So stretch your legs. Come to the snack bar now.